Today with After Effects, we're going to learn how to use some of its tools to do some realistic motion to a simple bit of type, but it really can be applied to anything. So here we have After Effects open, and you'll see that we have this new file, so everything's blank, nothing happening. The first thing we have to do, really to do anything in After Effects, is to start a composition. So if we go up here to composition, we'll see new composition is all we can choose. So let's choose that. So here are the composition settings, and depending upon what type of media you're going to end up working for, you can choose various presets. You can see things here for various TV types, even movie formats, and so on. For this one, we're going to use this size right here. It's kind of a widescreen aspect ratio. You can see that, 960 by 540 pixels. So that's a good size. 24 frames per second is fine. And we'll do a duration of 10 seconds. That should work for us. The background color is black. So generally speaking, you want to get this stuff figured out before you start your project. We'll just say, OK. And then here's our movie. Here's our what's called a composition. Now, I like to show rulers. So I'll go up here to View and Show Rulers. So here we have the pixels across and the pixels down. And this can be very helpful, especially because we can pull out some guides. So I want to pull out some guides halfway. That can help with what I'm going to do. So we have 960 pixels there. I could pull out a guide here, and there's 450. We'll do another 30 right there. And so there's the halfway. I think we'll even pull down a halfway right here. So if we have this 540, there's 250 and a little bit more, 20 more. All right. So the guides can be very, very helpful in positioning your elements and making sure things are where you want them to go. So we'll start off with animating something, and I'll do some text. We'll just click the text tool right here, and there it is. It really could be anything. We'll start with text right here. So I'll just click and just type in something. Okay, so there's our text we're going to use. You can see text controls right here, a nice white Bauhaus. This size will work for now. That will be just fine, and we'll click that. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to put it right down here, and you'll see it snap to this guide. So these guides can actually be quite helpful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the text on over here, the left side, and have it come off screen, come onto the screen, and then shoot off the other side right there. We'll see if we can do something interesting with that. So we'll just kind of slide it over here and try and keep it up there on this guide. Put it right off the screen there. There we go. That's good. Now to animate something, we need to start working with keyframes. So keyframes would be points where in the timeline where the item changes, and then After Effects will do the intermediate steps. It's called tweening. So right here we have layers. Right now we just have the one. So if you're familiar with layers from programs like Photoshop or Illustrator, you'll have the similar thing happening here in After Effects, except that we have a timeline. And because we have 10 seconds, here's our 0 and there's our 10. This is the full time. So I'm going to just open up this arrow here and expand these characteristics. I'll see text and I'll see transform. I'm going to open up transform. These are the things we're going to work with. These are some pretty easy things we can create keyframes and have After Effects animate for us. So right here we see position. That's what we're going to be concerned with right now is position. And this is actually a stopwatch if you can't tell. So if I'm going to animate something, I'm going to click this stopwatch and it gives me a keyframe. A little diamond icon right there, that's a keyframe. And now we can animate things. So we start over here, that's good. I'm going to move my current time over here to the very end of my movie. And then just take the text and move it all the way across. Now I could drag it, or I could use the arrow keys, left, down, up, right, or I could even do it numerically. But I'm just using the arrow keys and holding down Shift at the same time so it moves at a faster rate. And you see I'm putting it way over there. I'm going to take it all the way off the screen, and that's good. Now what's nice about After Effects is that it has put a new keyframe right here. It's put it in automatically. So it's a really nice feature. So as I move my playhead back, I can see there it is moving across. All right. I can even hit play, and it'll just slide across like that. Now, this isn't a real-time preview, and After Effects will show you that right there. But it just shows you the movement. Okay, so let's go back here. We'll put it to the beginning. And what you can see here is as this is moving, you can see the position. This is the X value. This is X value, this is Y, so we have horizontal, we have vertical. You can see that value change as it goes across. Since it's not going up and down, that value stays the same. All right, so let's go back here and do a few more things to give this some better motion. I'm going to come here to say maybe the first second. Let's see, it's 1 second right there. And I want to have this maybe come in quickly right to the middle basically. So I'll just use my left arrow key and I'll shoot it over here to the middle. And here's where we'll see this guide being very helpful. I can see with the transform controls here, I can see that's a middle point. I'm going to kind of put that right there, a little bit to the left of this center line. And then I'm going to come over here to 9 seconds. So that's 1 second away from being done. And I'm going to move it back. So the idea here is it's going to come in quickly and then slow down in the middle and then shoot out really quickly as well. Okay, so there we go. So what I should see here is I should see it come in quickly and then there it is very slow. And it looks like it's sliding too far. And now it's kind of going back. That's not what I expected at all. That's a little strange. So this is a little quirk that After Effects puts into things. And it has to do with what it calls interpolation between keyframes. So it's actually not doing a linear motion or a simple motion. It's trying to give it some natural curvature to the motion. We'll learn more about that in a moment. But I don't want that. I want very simple motion. I don't want back and forth and all that. So I'm going to come to this keyframe here. I'm going to right click on it. And I'm going to see keyframe interpolation. That's a very important term as we get to tweening. Click on that and I'll get some options here. Now this is the problem. It says continuous Bezier. If you're familiar with the pen tool with Bezier curves, say in Illustrator, that's for making smooth curves. And with animation, that makes things kind of start and stop slowly and more naturally. We don't want that at the moment. I want to do linear. Okay, so we want linear and linear, and I think this probably should be a default, and we should have to change it if we want to do something better. This is going to be much simpler and more useful at the moment, so I'll click OK. And what I'm going to see now is there it comes, and we have one more problem I think to take care of, and that's going to be with this keyframe. So I'm going to right click on that and choose the same thing, interpolation, and look, there's continuous Bezier. So linear. We want this to both be linear. Now let's see what that does for us. As I play this, it comes in quick, and there it slows down. Slow movement there, very nice. And it was working fairly well. Keep on going, and then it should quick movement out. Okay, perfect. That is what I want to see. Now one thing you might notice here is that it comes in quickly and then it very suddenly stops. And so it's kind of like a bit of a jerky, too sudden movement from this fast movement to being slow. We want to try and emulate real world movement, real world physics. And that's too much of an abrupt change in movement. Imagine if you're driving a car and you're going from fast to slow, it's not instantaneous, right? Here, the speed change is instantaneous. You put on the brakes, it takes you a while to slow down. So now that movement needs to kind of ramp down a little bit. There's an old-fashioned animation term called easing, and easing is exactly what will take care of that. Luckily, After Effects has some quick tools for that. I'm going to right-click once again on this keyframe, and I'm going to see Keyframe Assistant, and here are some ease controls. The two important ones now are going to be ease in and ease out. Ease in means to take that motion and vary it or kind of incrementally increase or decrease at the beginning of the motion. And that's what we want right here. We're going to ease in right here. Now just to show you another nice little trick, this little arrow here will take me to the next keyframe. That pops me over here. So I know I'm right on the keyframe. And I want to do just the opposite, which is I want to ease out. So right click, choose Keyframe Assistant, and there's ease out. That puts the gradient or the gradual motion at the end of the motion. So now we'll have some more natural motion, as it gives it some time to slow down from the fast motion, where it's moving really slowly, and then kind of start speeding up to the fast motion right here. So the whole idea is to give it some more natural looking motion here as we're moving along, and to make it a bit more interesting. Let's see if we can kind of see that here. As I play that, you can actually see it start to slow down there. It's not an instantaneous, unnatural jump. And then as it comes over here, it should start to speed up again. All right, so that's just exactly what we want. So that easing in is really going to be helpful to give this kind of some more realistic, natural looking motion. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest this is being filmed, and a fast-moving object might give some motion blur. As there's motion between, say, the shutter opening and closing, we'll have some blur happening. Now, there are various ways we can do that, but with an actual animating item, like this could be text, or even could be a picture, or a logo, or graphic, or something. But with it actually moving, there's a very simple thing we can do in After Effects, and that is right here, these various controls. This one here says, oddly enough, motion blur. If I click that, that's going to try and put some motion blur, and the way to get motion blur into your image is the quicker the motion, so the more it moves or changes over the shortest amount of time, that's going to give you most of your motion there, your motion blur. And so the faster it's moving, in this case, in a short amount of time, the more motion blur you're going to get. Now, we're not seeing it happening here because After Effects has to kind of calculate that. So we need to render it out to actually see it happening. So that's the next step here. We've done all the work we're going to do for the moment. We need to go up to Composition, and we need to Add to Render Queue. So that's how After Effects takes all the stuff you've done and calculates the final result. We'll do Add to Render Queue, and there's our item right there. That looks good. So for the settings, I'll click on that, and we'll keep everything here. The important thing right here is frame blending, on for checked layers. We want to make sure that's on because that's going to help us. That's the motion blur we're looking for. Okay, so that's all fine. Let's click OK. For the output, this is the video format. We're going to choose H.264. It used to be the QuickTime was a common video format, especially for web, but H.264 is a better one, and it actually gives you a much smaller file size. So it's a good one right there. Everything looks good, and we'll say OK. You can see now instead of MOV, it's an MP4. That's the kind of video we're working with these days. That's what we want. So I'm going to click on there and find a place to put this. Maybe we'll put that right there in Demo, and we'll just call this Motion, and we'll say Save. All right, now just all that remains is to click the Render button. So I'll click Render, and you can actually see the motion blur happening as it's being rendered and the final output. And there we go. That's it. We're all done. The only thing really to do now is to test and see our final movie. So there it is. We'll just kind of open this up here, and there's the movie. If you play it, there you go. There's the slow kind of motion right there, and then it should, when it gets to the end, start to speed up and then have more blur as it goes out again. And that's how to put some simple, natural move into your animations in After Effects.